Hello, this is forecaster Dante Avery Brown Roy from the Weather Van Storm Prediction Center, and today I'm here to give you a preview of what our preliminary winter outlook of 2020 and 2021 will be. Of course, we have our Path to Winter series, which this year will be featured once every week instead of once every day. Because I don't have the time necessarily to do it once every day, but once every week. Our second episode in this series will feature, as you can see, the preliminary winter outlook. And this is done later than it used to be done. It used to be done in May, but now it's being done in July, so we can get a closer look at what the winter will possibly be like. We're going to focus mainly on the eastern half of the United States because that's where I specialize in. So without further ado, we're going to first look at the current state of the ESNO, and currently this is as of May 31st, 2020. You can see, May 31st to June 27th, the average temperatures, and this right here is an easterly based neutral to La Nina forming. You can see the negative ones. You're starting to get into that in those deeper blues. That's a neutral. This is technically neutral, but you can tell that it's heading towards looks like it's heading towards a La Nina, and that's actually what one of my favorite models is pointing to. The CFS V2, which you're going to look at later. This is from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This was their summary of their report. Currently, we are in ESN neutral condition in the northern hemisphere um, throughout the summer. This summer, that's what we're going to pretty much stay in, and they're projecting a 40% to 50% chance of a La Nina or ESNO neutral. But however, one thing that is interesting is that they are not predicting El Nino, which it seems highly improbable considering what we just saw on this map right here, where we can see the temperatures are on their way down. So I personally, what here's my projection will be a La Nina through the autumn and winter of 2020-2021, a weak La Nina at that. The CFSV2 backs up this thought process, is projecting us to fall deeper into a weak La Nina. Um, well, pretty much average a week La Nina over the next several months of July, August, September through the winter. A week La Nina is actually what is projected through the winter as it is supposed to. Nosedive is a bit strong because this will be a really weak La Nina to neutral conditions. Technically, anything really under this one right here is considered neutral. But what we're going to look at is that I'm projecting a weak La Nina. I think because usually this model underdoes the coldness um, of the sea temperatures in the Pacific. So I believe that we're going to see this farther dip down than what you see here, especially as we get into the later months. I know a lot of people, for example, over this past winter were like, "Oh, we're gonna have a strong El Nino," and I was like, "Well, this model overdoes the usually overdoes it does the warmness, so it uh, ended up being closer to what I expected, which was more of a weak El Nino to a neutral condition." So, with all that said, here's the typical weak La Nina temperatures in the eastern and the United States in general. Um, Generally, it's colder than average out of 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 6 years. So usually a good over half percent, over about 60% of the time, it's a colder than average condition, especially in the eastern coastline. But you can see in 71, 72, you had warmer conditions in the south and in the east, and you had a warmer east in 74 and 75. However, you had a really cold winter in 83, 84, more recently 2000, 2001. Um, in the year 54, 55, there was a colder than average, and this one you could say is average to a little below average. But one thing that I will point out and all most of these except this one down here. This is really the outlier there. But most of these in the Midwest, you're seeing that is at least colder than average, and five of these six images you're seeing is colder than average. So this is what a typical. These are just some. We've had more weak lightning in winters to neutral winters. Later on in our next week, we're going to look into what a neutral winter would mean for us. But as I said, I'm showing you what I believe our projections are going to be, which is a weak La Nina going into this upcoming winter. Here's my projected storm tracks. I think the predominant storm track will be right here, as you can see, going where you see a storm system developing, go up into the Great Lakes and Mid-Atlantic. This could be a little farther, maybe about 100 miles to the east, where I think that over here you're in for a pretty decent sized winter. You'll see in my overall forecast, and then you'll see a lot of these little Alberta Clippers things come down as well, because I believe that it will be cooler than average. So you'll have these storm systems that come down. You'll have a couple that'll spin up the coast and they'll develop, and you have some snow in the mid-Atlantic. But for the most part, I also expect it to be not a very active storm track in the south. And as I said, we're not focusing much on much of the other portions of the United States, but in the west, I do expect it to be wetter than average. So we're going to look at that map real quick. Overall, I expect it to be wetter than average in the west, Pacific Northwest, just to be a wet period of time, and that's typical for them. Usually the winters are wet, very cold, and some snow. As you look into areas of the Midwest and the upper areas of the Northeast, I believe that this will be the greatest area right here of getting the majority of the snow. I believe the winter battle zone will be in the areas of the Mid-Atlantic. I think you'll have more rain than snow in the big cities of Washington, D.C., Richmond, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, but it will be more snowy than last year, where a lot of areas were in a snow drought. So I think this will be the battle zone, where, as I said, you'll see that little storm track. You'll be fighting it, whether it's going to be over here, over here. You'll have storms that'll give you snow to rain, then back to snow, situations like that. I believe it will be mild and wet, and in the area in between there. But in the south in general, I think it'll be a decently mild winter, and I would think it will be drier than normal. Same way, average temperatures and the chances of precipitation and rain in the west. But this will be more detailed and be further updated. Probably by October will be our next update. But in our Path to Winter series, we're going to look at different factors every week, and those are factors that I will be looking at that will determine what the rest of the winter looks like. But this is going off of what a typical La Nina year is, and then what I believe some of the weather patterns will be, especially for the Midwest, Northeast, and the eastern half of the nation. So this is forecaster Dante Avery Brown Royal from the Weather Van Storm Prediction Center. I hope everybody enjoys the weather, because it's the only weather they got, and have a wonderful day.